This is the part 2 of chapter 3, performing non-technical tests. I have here guidelines to perform social engineering tests. First, we need to understand those components of social engineering discussed in part 1. Next is to know means to leverage motivation techniques, launch a phishing attack to entice targets to leak sensitive information. We may use media other than just email for phishing or social media. Create a convincing forgery of a popular website. We may capture credentials through login forms on the forged website. We may also leverage gathered data about people to spearfish specific targets. We may also consider targeting high-level personnel in phishing. We may use impersonation to make attacks seem more authentic. We may also use solicitation to get targets to reveal information. Means to leverage hoax to make attacks more convincing. We may drop a USB drive loaded with malware in a parking lot or in a certain area where our targets are. We may determine how users fall victims to mistyped URLs. We may leverage spam techniques in phishing attacks. We may also see how easy it is to observe employees without their knowledge and consider how environment might make tailgating or piggybacking more or less effective. An attacker, through physical means of an attack, may take pictures of restricted areas, proprietary devices, and internal vulnerabilities. It may steal devices, documents, and electronic data, or access restricted systems, or plant malicious devices such as keystroke loggers, or search for new targets. Means to mitigate these kinds of attack, we may have door and or hardware locks. We may install security um, surveillance cameras. We need to invest for a security guard stationed inside and outside of a building or patrolling an area. Lightning also is better. It makes it easier to spot an intruder at night. And having physical barriers like fences and gates, man traps, alarms, and motion sensors. Fence jumping is the act of surmounting a height-based physical barrier like a fence, gate, or wall in order to gain access to a restricted area. Depending on the barrier's height, you may find it easier to go over it than attempt to go around it or through it. For example, some fences are only 3 or 4 feet high and are designed to prevent someone from casually walking up to an area they shouldn't be accessing. The fence may extend all along the perimeter and is likely made of metal that is not easily bent or broken without the proper tools. Therefore, going over the fence could be the most viable option. However, someone attempting to climb or literally jump over the fence may attract suspicion if seen. More restrictive premises will likely install taller fences, usually above 8 feet, that cannot be jumped and must be climbed. Not only will these fences attract suspicion, but they are also designed to be difficult to climb over with considerable effort. A ladder may aid in your effort to scale a tall fence, though again, this could draw suspicion. Dumpster diving is an act of searching the contents of trash containers for something of value. In a pen test, dumpster diving can help you claim certain documents that contain sensitive information relevant to an organization. For example, in the first few weeks of the year, people often discard calendar from the previous year. So many people write their passwords down on their calendar so they don't need to remember them. In addition, to personal documents, organizations sometimes improperly dispose of official documents in hard copy, like past quarterly financial reports or product proposal drafts. This can give you insight into the target's business operation. You may even be able to piece together shredded documents with enough time and patience. In addition to documents, organizations also improperly dispose of storage devices and even whole computers. They may have failed to wipe the data from these devices, enabling you to recover their contents and possibly find something of value. Any given organization will undoubtedly have at least one door or cabinet, safe, device, or other asset that they will place behind the lock. You may need to find ways to circumvent these locks in order to achieve your goals. If you can't even get into an office because the front door is locked, then your physical pen test will be cut short. Find and foremost, the type of lock will influence how you get around it. There are several different types of locks, and one of the most common is the standard key lock. And from the name itself, it requires the correct key in order for the lock to open. Key locks typically use pin tumblers, interchangeable cores, or wafers under springs used for tension. Bolt cutters and hacksaws may be able to destroy locks that are made from substandard material or are designed poorly. Other than physical destruction, you also have the option to pick the lock. Lock picking is a skill and requires practice with the right tools. Some vendors sell lock picking kits that come with an array of tools to make the job easier, but you still need to know how to use the tools properly for them to be effective. Radio frequency identification is a standard for identifying and keeping track of objects' physical locations through the use of radio waves. RFID has many different applications, but in the context of physical security, it is often used with identification badges. An RFID tag is attached to the badge and contains an antenna and a microchip. A lock containing an RFID reader continuously sends a signal into the area surrounding the reader. The RFID tag's antenna picks up this signal when in close proximity, and the microchip generates a return signal. The RFID reader receives this signal and opens the lock if the signal is authenticated. Unlike a card with a chip or magnetic stripe, an RFID badge does not need to be waved in front of the reader. It simply needs to be within a few feet of the reader and can be inside of a bag, affixed to someone's shirt, or otherwise physically obstructed. RFID authentication system can support granular access control with unique badges, allowing only certain badges to open certain locks. Badge cloning is the act of copying authentication data from an RFID badge microchip to another badge. In an attack scenario, badge cloning is useful because it enables the attacker to obtain authorization credentials without actually stealing a physical badge from the organization. Badge cloning can be done through handheld RFID writers, which are inexpensive and easy to use. You simply hold the badge up to the RFID writer device, press a button to copy its tag data, then hold a blank badge up to the device and write the copied data. You now have a clone badge. What's more, certain badge cloning tools can read the data like any normal RFID reader, in that the reader can be several feet away and concealed inside the bag. Note that the badge cloning is most effective on older RFID badge technology that uses 125 kilohertz. This technology does not support encryption and will begin transmitting data to any receivers that are nearby. Newer RFID badge technology usually uses high frequencies and increases the rate at which data can be sent and subsequently supports encryption. These badges only broadcast certain identifying attributes rather than all authentication data on the badge. Uh, Despite the advances in security, these encryption-based badges can still be cloned with the right tools. All it takes is an Android device with NFC capabilities and a cloning app. Certain apps will contain the default encryption keys that are issued by the badge's manufacturer. Many organizations fail to change these keys, and as a result, you can easily copy the badge's data to a new badge through NFC, near field communication. Motion detection systems are used to detect movements in a particular area for the purpose of identifying unauthorized physical access. Such systems typically incorporate sensors that are placed or motion sensors to be specific. They are usually placed at the building key entrances and exits, and this is used to monitor ingress and egress. Ingress meaning those that are going inside the building. Egress is those that are going out. This ingress and egress sensors, they can use. It is used as a variety of different technologies to detect motion, but most focus on detecting but they're most focused on detecting changes in the infrared spectrum. Some sensors are specifically designed to detect human body's motion or say infrared emissions. Others may detect when a strong infrared pattern is being blocked. Bypassing motion detection system can be tricky, especially if they cover an entire room that you want access to, or if they block your path to other rooms of value. Most motion sensors are placed in ceilings and opposite of each other to cover the widest possible area. Finding a blind spot is not always feasible if the zones encompass too wide an area or you cannot identify where the sensor is. Another method would be to place a piece of material like a cardboard, styrofoam, or glass over the sensor to block it entirely. If you can't reach the sensor itself, you may be able to use the material to block your own body and minimize the infrared light you are projecting. However, this is not always effective and often requires you to move very slowly and use a very large piece of blocking material. Likewise, sensors that look for strong blocking patterns will not be fooled by either of these tactics. And as a summary, I have a list here of guidelines in performing physical security tests in a specific facility. Again, take note, very important to identify security controls in place at a target organization. Look for low fences at entrances and other restricted areas. Also consider using a ladder to scale a taller fence. Consider the danger of scaling a fence with barbed or razor wire. Look for dumpsters that may contain sensitive materials, let's say calendar with passwords, or those business documents that are being thrown in the garbage, or storage devices and computing equipment. Also practice with a lock picking tool, find other ways around keyless locks, use a handheld RFID writer to clone badges, conceal cloning tool in the bag to read from several feet away. You may also use Android's app to clone encrypted RFID badges, which uses default keys. Identify area a motion sensor covers. Also leverage the motion sensor blind spot to move through a building. Consider using a piece of material to block a motion sensor and focus on infrared light on a sensor to fool it. So this ends this chapter, chapter 3. Keep safe. Together we learn as well.